AMD stock is down nearly 20% from its 52-week high. Investors and Wall Street are very excited for its AI chip, the MI300X. But are revenue expectations from investors even realistic? Can AMD actually make these huge revenue jumps? And is there really a reason to buy this over Nvidia? I'll talk about all this in today's episode, so let's get started.
I want to thank The Motley Fool for sponsoring this video, and check out fool.com/Jose for the 10 best stocks to buy now. With that link, you get a promotional offer for their subscription service. Now, let's continue with today's episode.
So I just want to start off with this analyst from Piper Sandler. His name is Harsh V. Kumar. If you follow the semiconductor space and you listen to a lot of earnings call, you're probably pretty familiar with this overall analyst. He did reiterate an overweight rating on AMD with a price target of 195. I don't really care about the price target, but what really caught my attention is Kumar does have a model for the types of revenue the MI300 can do in 2024 and 2025. In 2024, he believes that the MI300X can do about $4 billion. Remember, Lisa Su mentions that they will do at least 3.5 billion. So I don't think 4 billion is that far off. And for 2025, Kumar believes that the MI300 can almost double since 2024 to about $7.6 billion. Again, we've seen how Nvidia has dominated this space, and doubling to 7.6 billion doesn't seem impossible either. So before I want to take a closer look at what analysts are expecting for AMD in forms of revenue for this fiscal year and next fiscal year, I want to take a recap of 2023. Before we go any further, I just want to say thank you all for the amazing support we are getting in this channel. We're closing into 40,000 subs. That is insane. So if you haven't and you are enjoying the content, make sure to hit the thumbs up and the subscribe button. Finally, if you want to support this channel a little bit more, check out my special offer at fool.com/Jose. Now back to today's episode. Because before we know where we're going, I think it's important to understand where we're at right now. So AMD pretty much deals in four markets: the data center with their server CPUs, the client with their client CPUs for desktop and laptops, the gaming market, which is pretty much the chips for the Xbox, and also their GPU system, and the embedded market, which is thanks to that Xilinx acquisition. So if we look at the numbers, their client market was down nearly 25% year over year versus 2022. The main reason, we had a huge over inventory correction. The gaming market was down 9%, and pretty much for the same reason of over inventory correction. You're selling less GPUs, but we are seeing a weakness in chips for the Xbox and PlayStation, as these are consoles that have been out for a while, so they don't sell as many chips as before. Now the data center market was up 7%, nothing too crazy, and the embedded market saw a strong first half, but a weak second half of 2023, and was up 17%. So we can see that for all the markets, we have some good, some bad, some flat, and some really bad. So like I mentioned, I think it's important to understand where we're at to know where we're going. So now I want to take a closer look at revenue growth expectation this year. And is this even a reasonable expectations that analysts are giving AMD? So like we saw for 2023, AMD made roughly $22.7 billion. And for 2024, analysts are expecting this company to make somewhere around 25.8. That's a gap of $3.1 billion. I think that this is actually going to be a very reasonable number for AMD to beat this year for one reason. AMD's revenue, every other segment could be pretty much flat, and just the added revenue of the $3.5 billion in the MI300X can beat these expectations, right? So I do believe 2024 AMD can beat analyst expectations, but there are some things to consider. The embedded market is expected to have a very weak first half with stabilization in the second half. It doesn't mean growth in the second half, but the bleeding will most likely stop in the second half. The second thing, though, on the other end, the client market is expected to grow from AI PC plus PC shipment growth. Here we can see that PC market in 2024 is expected to grow roughly 8%. AMD also is gaining market share from Intel and the added margins on higher tier laptops. I do believe AMD can see a huge growth in the PC market, aka the client market, versus 2023. If we take a closer look at 2023 was the bottom for the PC space, and we can see the client market was down 25% in 2023. So revenue growth, like I mentioned, in 2024, we're going to see the growth from the MI300X. We're going to see growth from the client market. We're also most likely going to see an increase in GPUs, and we can see a growth in the data center outside of GPUs because AMD will be releasing their Epic 5th generation CPU solution. So I personally, if I was to kind of give a final verdict for revenue growth in 2024 and can AMD beat expectations, I think it can beat expectations easily and even beat revenue by about $500 million. So assuming somewhere around $26.3 billion based on those other markets that we mentioned. So there's two ways that this revenue though can go in either direction. The first direction, it can go really, really high. It would be with the growth of the MI300X. If it grows more than that $3.5 billion or that $4 billion that the analyst was kind of expecting. On the other end, it can go really, really bad if the embedded market continues to see a lot of bleeding. And we do know that the embedded market is expected to go down at least in the first half of this year. And if we look back at the numbers, the embedded market is a nice chunk of AMD's total revenue, almost a quarter of this company's total revenue. So if this market sees a huge decline, it can definitely impact overall revenue beats at the end of the year. Regardless, like I mentioned, final verdict, I do think AMD can beat expectations for 2024. Now, I think most investors are investing in AMD for 2025. And this is where things start to get kind of crazy. Wall Street believes that AMD's revenue for 2025 will be roughly $32.6 billion. The gap between 2024 and 2025 now jumps to about $6.5 billion. And what do we expect in 2025? Well, the embedded market should be back in full swing. So the embedded market should be growing. The PC market, if we take a closer look at this chart, the PC market should also be growing in 2025. The GPU gaming growing with the PC space. So obviously, if you're selling more PCs, you're selling more GPUs to the PC space. And then the CPU server business should be taking market share from Intel. Plus, they should be also building into the enterprise market. And then GPU server sales could grow by about 100%. Remember, $7 billion is not that crazy in forms of AI accelerators with the numbers Nvidia is pumping out. So my final verdict here, with the growth in the embedded market, with the growth in the PC market, I think the company can meet that $32.6 billion on revenue. The biggest question is the competition from Nvidia in the AI space. Now, there's two scenarios that I think the MI300X can do in 2025. It can either be a lot more than $7 billion, or it can be near that $7 billion. I don't think it would be a lot less. I think the AI market is here to stay. And for that reason, AMD will have plenty of opportunity to make sales of the MI300X. Remember, $7 billion is a chump market share compared to Nvidia's $120 plus billion expected in data center revenue that year. So my final verdict for AMD right now, with the PE ratio for 1 year, which is the end of 2025, being somewhere around 31.1, it's not necessarily completely overvalued. And let me explain why. Normally, I would like this closer to 25, but since I believe it could be expectations, I wouldn't mind this at a PE of 27-ish, which would be at least a 12% drop from current prices or a stock price of roughly $150. I think at a stock price of $150, AMD isn't the it isn't overvalued at that point. It wouldn't be a bad addition, in my opinion, for long-term holds. Obviously, the market is always very volatile, so even if one buys at 150, you can obviously see the stock price even lower than that. The second thing, though, I do want to mention is I don't mind being patient because I do have this as my second largest positions. But if I didn't have shares, I probably wouldn't mind dabbling at these levels for building slowly into an AMD position. Like I mentioned, 150 would be a nice great point for me. Right now would be small dollar cost averaging if I didn't have a position. Now, there's a real question. Why not buy Nvidia instead of AMD? Especially if we look at forward 1 year, Nvidia is trading at cheaper valuations. So Nvidia, even with this huge growth, is still trading at cheaper valuations than AMD. And there are a few reasons why someone might choose AMD over Nvidia. And I think the main reason is Nvidia has high hopes from Wall Street. So Wall Street is expecting a lot from Nvidia. Between 2023 to 2024, Nvidia's revenue is expected to jump $50 billion, where for AMD is only expected to jump up 3.1 billion. For 2024 to 2025, Nvidia's revenue is expected to grow 25 billion versus AMD's $6 billion. So we can see right now Wall Street is expecting a lot and a lot from Nvidia. The other thing is Nvidia's growth is mainly all dependent in GPUs, and that's it. Nvidia's real growth only matters in the AI space, in the AI software, in AI data centers, in AI workloads. AMD's growth can come from huge markets, especially with this, right? Obviously, Nvidia's growth can be made from consumer GPUs, but consumer GPUs is not going to help Nvidia make $50 billion. It's only from the data center market. Now, AMD's growth can also come from the PC CPUs. It can also come from the embedded market. It can also come from server CPUs. Because a jump of $3.1 billion, all those other markets can help boost it up. So AMD doesn't have too much dependency in the AI space as Nvidia. Personally, though, I am very bullish in the AI space, and that's why NVIDIA is my number one position. But I do believe that AMD can also gain in those other markets, and that's why AMD is my second biggest position. Some people might be wondering, hey, Jose, aren't they just why don't you just own one? And I mentioned it perfectly here. Nvidia's all growth opportunity is really focused in AI space right now. AMD's opportunity is focused in various markets. So it's very, very well diversified to its own extent. And if we take a closer look, Wall Street isn't really expecting too much in the AI front from AMD. So if we ever see the stock at below 150, I think that's where I wouldn't mind adding on. Anything below that looks pretty interesting for AMD right now. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. Take care, have a good day, and see you next time.